Learn to stay silent and focused because most of what's loud isn't important, and most of what's important isn't loud. You know, I've learned something over the years. If you're always talking, you're probably not building. If you're always reacting, you're probably not thinking. And if you're chasing attention, you're probably drifting from your plan. There's a real power in staying quiet and staying locked in on what you need to get done. That's where the progress is. You don't need to explain everything you're doing. You don't need to be part of every conversation. And you don't have to answer every question people throw at you. What you really need is focus. And you protect that focus by keeping your mouth shut when it doesn't serve you and keeping your eyes on what matters most. In this video, we're going to talk about the power of staying silent and focused. You'll see how silence sharpens your decisions, how focus builds your results, and why the quiet path is often the strongest one. Stick with me, because if you master this, you won't need to say much. Your life will speak for you. Number 1, keep quiet and give yourself room to think clearly. Keep quiet and give yourself room to think clearly. Most people don't do that. Most people are so busy filling the air with words that they never leave enough space to hear their own thoughts, as they will write it all down. And when your mind is cluttered with noise, whether it's from others or from your own talking, you lose your edge. You lose your awareness. You stop seeing what matters. You get pulled in every direction. And over time, your direction is no longer your own. When you keep quiet, you give yourself a chance to catch up to your life. You stop reacting to everything instantly. You start processing things carefully. And in that quiet space, something powerful begins to happen. You begin to understand. You begin to see things you missed. You start asking the right questions, not emotional questions, not noisy questions, strategic ones, clear ones. Quiet thinking leads to better decisions, and better decisions lead to a better life. Some people talk to fill the silence. They think silence is uncomfortable. They think if they don't speak, people will misunderstand them or forget about them or judge them. But what they don't see is this. When you're always talking, you give away your strength. You give people too much access to what's inside your mind. You give up control. And once that happens, you're no longer leading your own life. You're just reacting. And that's dangerous. Silence gives you space to lead yourself first. When you're quiet, you have the chance to reset. You slow things down. You think with more care. You respond instead of react. That's what strong people do. Weak minds react without thinking. Strong minds pause. They take a moment. They keep quiet and decide the next move based on logic, not emotion. That's how you stay in control, by staying silent until you've thought it through. There's power in waiting. There's strength in not needing to say everything. You don't have to share all your plans. You don't have to explain your every move. You don't have to speak just because someone expects you to. Most of the time, you're better off listening. Listening teaches you things that talking never will. You learn how people think. You notice their words. You catch their patterns. And in that silence, you're learning how to win. You'll be surprised how much energy you save when you stay quiet. Every word you speak takes effort. Every argument you get pulled into steals time and focus. And the more you talk about what you're going to do, the less likely you are to do it. Because talk often replaces action. That's why the best use of your words is to keep them until they're necessary. That's discipline. That's strategy. When you give yourself room to think clearly, you stop falling into traps. You stop making the same emotional decisions that kept you stuck before. You stop repeating bad patterns. You begin to see the root of your habits. You understand where your time is going. You realize who's wasting it. And you begin making decisions that are not just emotional, but long-term and personal. That only happens when you get quiet enough to think. You don't need to post everything. You don't need to speak on every topic. You don't need to respond to every insult or every opinion or every piece of drama thrown your way. Most of it doesn't deserve your energy. Most of it is bait to get you talking. Don't take it. Be smarter than that. Stay silent and focus on your next move. Protect your energy like it matters. Because it does. Silence builds character. It teaches you patience. It teaches you control. You stop reacting like a child. You stop acting on impulse. You slow down, breathe, and think. And when you think clearly, you start to move better. You choose your actions more carefully. You start to take responsibility for your life instead of blaming people for how they treat you. You realize something very important. Most of the noise around you is not helping you grow. And once you realize that, silence becomes your best friend. People will wonder why you're so quiet. That's okay, let them wonder. People don't need to understand everything you're doing. They don't need access to your every thought. If anything, the less they know, the stronger your position becomes. That's how you keep your advantage. You don't hand it away by over-explaining your life. You hold it by thinking things through, keeping quiet, and working in silence. And then when results show up, you don't even need to speak. The results will speak for you. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to defend yourself every time someone misunderstands you. Some things are better left alone. Some battles are not worth the fight. When you stay silent in those moments, you protect your peace. And that peace gives you the space to keep building. You don't lose your energy arguing. You don't get sidetracked. You stay focused, and focus, my friend, is rare. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, wants to be heard, wants to be right, focus is what separates the serious from the distracted. Silence creates focus. It helps you tune out what doesn't matter and zoom in on what does. That's how you make progress. That's how you grow. You stop trying to keep up with everybody else's noise and you stay committed to your own path. Sometimes you've got to be quiet, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to wait. That's real strength. That's real power. Anybody can talk. Anybody can argue. Anybody can make noise. But only a person with discipline can be quiet on purpose. Only a person with clarity can step back and say, this doesn't deserve my time. And when you live that way, things begin to shift. You notice how much clearer your thinking becomes. You don't feel overwhelmed all the time. You're not constantly reacting. You're not emotionally drained. You're stable. You're thinking with direction. And people start to notice. They sense your confidence. They sense your control. Not because you said something, but because of how you carry yourself. That's the power of silence. That's how you make things flow in your favor. You stop wasting energy on noise and invest it in what matters. It's not easy to stay quiet when your emotions are loud, but it's necessary. You've got to train yourself to pause. Take a moment. Think clearly. Don't rush to speak. Don't let the world pull your voice before your mind is ready. Guard your voice like you guard your time. Make it valuable, use it when it counts, and when it doesn't, stay quiet, think clearly, and stay on track. That's the difference between the ones who drift through life and the ones who take control. It's not always who talks the best, it's often who thinks the clearest. And thinking clearly starts with one simple move. Keep quiet and give yourself room to think. Number 2, hold your silence and study people more closely now. Most people are in such a rush to speak that they miss the most important clues sitting right in front of them. When you hold your silence and observe closely, you start noticing things that go far beyond words. You see how people react under pressure. You see how consistent they are. You catch the small shifts in tone, in attitude, in focus. Silence opens your eyes. You begin to notice patterns. You begin to understand what drives people, what they avoid, what they chase, what they pretend to be. But you won't catch these things if you're always talking. The ones who study quietly, who pay attention without interrupting, they see things from the ground level. They notice who shows up only when it's easy. They spot the excuses behind the confident talk. They notice when someone's energy doesn't match their words. This isn't about judging people, it's about reading them. The truth is often hidden behind words. People say things they don't mean. They make promises they can't keep. But when you stay quiet, their behavior shows you everything. When you talk too much, you give away your position. You reveal your thoughts too early. You allow others to shape your response before you even form it. But when you stay quiet, you hold the power. You learn how to sit with discomfort. You learn how to watch instead of react. You gather the information that others miss. You notice when someone is trying too hard. You feel when something is off. You don't need to ask, they show you everything in how they behave. And all you had to do was keep quiet. In silence, you grow sharper. You build inner strength. You remove the need to always defend yourself. You don't jump in to prove anything. You don't need approval. That makes you dangerous. In the best way. People don't know what you're thinking. They can't predict your moves. And when they speak too much, you're busy learning. You're watching how they treat others. You're watching how they handle setbacks. You're learning their weaknesses, their habits, their truth. You're not wasting time trying to impress anyone. You're studying the room while they try to own it. The more you observe, the more control you gain. You control your emotions, your words, your energy. You start responding with clarity instead of reacting with impulse. You see through the surface. You pick up on energy that words try to hide. You recognize fear in overconfidence. You notice insecurity behind arrogance. That's only possible when you step back. When you stop rushing to fill the space. When you sit still long enough to really see what's going on. Most people can't do this because they're addicted to noise. But silence sharpens your awareness like nothing else. You begin to separate who's real from who's pretending. The ones who speak loudly often hide the most, but when you're silent, you don't chase anything. You don't need attention. You don't need to explain your worth. That stillness gives you a clear advantage. While others are too busy performing, you're watching. You're learning. You're preparing. You're making your moves quietly and precisely, and when you do speak, your words carry more weight, not because they're loud, but because they come from clarity and strength, not desperation. Sometimes people try to provoke you just to see how you'll react. They want to pull you into arguments, into gossip, into chaos. That's a test. And the best response is to hold your silence, not because you're weak, but because you value your peace more than their approval. You learn quickly that not every action deserves a reaction. Not every insult needs an answer. When you stay silent in the middle of noise, you remain centered. You think for yourself. You hold your ground. And people start to respect that, even if they never say it out loud. The people who study in silence don't waste time in drama. They're focused, they're disciplined, they're watching what others miss. They're listening between the lines. They're learning how to respond with wisdom instead of emotion. And because they're not busy proving themselves, they get better results. They stay calm in conflict. They speak only when it adds value. And they never speak just to be heard. That's the power of holding your silence. You grow while everyone else is just reacting. It's not about staying silent forever. It's about choosing the right moment to speak. It's about not throwing your energy into places that won't grow. It's about knowing your value and not needing others to confirm it. Silence teaches you what matters. It clears out the noise and brings your attention to the truth. You see where people stand, who you can trust, and who you should let go. But you only see that when you slow down, stop talking, and start paying attention. So take a step back, watch more, speak less. Let your silence become your strength. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it clear your path. Use it to separate real from fake. Use it to study people, not to judge, but to understand. Every word you don't speak gives you more time to think, more space to grow, more clarity to move. And when you finally speak, you'll say exactly what's needed, nothing more, nothing less. That's how you make silence work in your favor. That's how you stay focused. That's how you build a life that stands strong, even in the noise. Number 3, speak less so you don't lose your advantage early. Too many people talk their way out of success before it even starts. They reveal too much too soon. They tell their goals to people who aren't listening. They share their strategies with people who don't care. And what happens? They lose their power. They lose their edge. When you speak too much, you give others a chance to interfere. You open yourself up to criticism, doubt, and distractions. When you speak less, you protect what you're building. You don't owe anyone your blueprint. You don't need to explain your every move. Keep that advantage to yourself until it's time. The moment you start explaining everything, you hand over your control. You give people the chance to shape your thinking. You invite their opinions, their emotions, their doubt. And once that happens, you're no longer moving with purpose, you're reacting to noise. That's how momentum gets lost. That's how clarity becomes confusion. By speaking less, you keep your plans clean. You stay committed to your own process. You don't allow outside energy to twist your thinking. You move quietly, but with full intention. You gain clarity by keeping your mouth closed and your focus sharp. There's a reason the most focused people don't say much. They're not trying to impress anyone. They're not looking for attention. They're focused on doing the work. When you speak too early about what you're planning, you create pressure. You set expectations, and sometimes that pressure kills the progress. You feel watched, you feel judged, you start second-guessing your steps. Silence removes that pressure. It allows you to grow privately. You can make mistakes without shame. You can change direction without having to explain it. That's freedom. That's how serious growth happens, without distractions. When people know less about your intentions, you become harder to read. And being unreadable is a strength. It keeps you unpredictable. It keeps others from placing you in a box. They can't get ahead of you because they don't know what's coming. That's your advantage. Speaking too much makes you easy to figure out. It gives others time to prepare their response or block your next move. But when you speak less, you stay in control. You hold the pace. You set the rhythm. You don't move according to pressure, you move with discipline. Every time you hold back your words, you're building strength. You're choosing clarity over noise. You're trusting yourself enough to not need approval. You don't need to say it to feel it. You don't need to share it to believe in it. When you learn to carry your goals in silence, you protect them. You give them space to grow. And when they're ready, you'll have something real to show. Not just words, not empty promises, but results. Results that didn't need a loud introduction. Results that came from consistency, not conversation. People often ask for advice they don't plan to follow. They want to hear your plans just to give their opinion, not to support you. That's another reason to speak less. When you keep quiet, you avoid wasting time explaining things to people who don't understand your vision. You don't drain your energy defending ideas they were never meant to carry. Your silence keeps your energy where it belongs, with you. You stay focused. You stay aligned. You keep moving forward without the need to argue or convince anyone. That's how you keep your advantage in a world full of opinions. There's power in not always having to respond. You don't have to answer every question. You don't have to explain every decision. You don't have to share every thought. Sometimes silence is the smartest move you can make. It keeps your priorities safe. It keeps your mission pure. Speaking less isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's a sign of strength. It means you value peace over attention. It means you understand timing, and timing is everything. Saying the right thing at the wrong time ruins opportunities, but staying quiet at the right time builds power. A quiet plan is easier to change. When you haven't told the world what you're doing, you can adjust freely. You can experiment. You can take steps without outside pressure. You have space to breathe and think. That space leads to sharper decisions. That space leads to fewer regrets. You don't rush. You don't act out of fear. You move with clear thinking and focused intention. You're not in a race with anyone else. You're building your own path, quietly and carefully. And over time, that quiet progress becomes unshakable confidence. If you're always speaking, you're not listening. And when you're not listening, you're missing valuable information. People will tell you everything you need to know if you give them space to speak. When you speak less, you learn more. You observe more. You catch things that others miss. That knowledge gives you an edge. It allows you to make smarter choices. It helps you avoid unnecessary conflict. It puts you in the driver's seat. And most importantly, it keeps your focus locked on what really matters. Your own growth, your own discipline, and your own responsibility. The less you talk, the more you build. The more you build, the less you need to talk. That's how it works. Keep your advantage by being selective with your words. Don't give away your strength for temporary attention. Don't let your goals be watered down by the noise around you. Protect your process. Trust your pace. Move in silence until what you've built can speak for itself. Because once your results are clear, there's nothing left to explain. The power was never in the talking, it was in the doing. And the doing begins when you stop talking too much. Number 4, wait in silence while others waste their energy talking. When others talk to feel important, you wait. When they rush to speak, to prove, to impress, you stay still. You don't need to jump into every conversation. You don't have to argue every opinion. You know that. Silence keeps you in control. You don't waste energy trying to win noise. You sit back and watch. You think, you process. And in that quiet space, you grow sharper. You don't waste your words or your time. While others spend their strength in every sentence, you're saving yours for the right moment, the one that actually moves your life forward. You learn more when you're not the one always speaking. You see who talks out of insecurity, who speaks without knowing, who tries to lead without thinking. It's all revealed when you stay silent and pay attention. People show you who they are when they think no one's really listening. And if you listen closely, without trying to interrupt or prove anything, you'll find the truth faster than they can hide it. That's the reward of silence. It teaches you how to read situations with clarity that words alone can't give. Energy is limited. Every moment you spend arguing, justifying, or reacting is energy taken from your own progress. Most people waste their power trying to be heard in rooms that don't matter. They feel tired, but they don't know why. It's because they're spending all their effort in conversations that don't help them grow. But when you stay silent, when you sit still and focus, you don't drain yourself. You conserve your drive. You invest your energy in your own development, not in proving yourself to people who don't care. There's something powerful about the person who doesn't speak unless it matters. They're not silent because they don't know. They're silent because they've learned the value of holding back. They don't need to jump in to feel strong. They've realized that quiet confidence is more effective than loud performance. And when they do speak, people stop and listen, not because they shout, but because their words are backed by action, focus, and discipline. That kind of presence can't be faked. It's earned through quiet patience and consistent self-control. Let others use their words to try and look impressive. Let them waste time debating topics that change nothing. While they talk, you observe. While they perform, you prepare. While they explain, you build. And when the time comes, your silence will have turned into results. That's the difference. You weren't distracted. You didn't react to noise. You didn't fall for emotional traps. You waited, you focused, and now you've moved ahead, not because you talked more, but because you used your time better. When emotions run high, people tend to speak quickly. They rush to defend, to argue, to win attention. But that rush usually leads to regret. Words spoken in frustration often make things worse. Actions taken in reaction often destroy progress. But if you can wait, if you can breathe, stay quiet, and let the moment pass, you stay in control. You don't let emotion take over. You protect your direction. And in a world that's constantly trying to pull you into chaos, silence becomes your strongest defense. Not everything deserves your voice. Not every situation requires your opinion. There's wisdom in walking away from arguments. There's maturity in choosing peace over proving a point. And while others wear themselves out trying to be right, you keep your focus on getting better. You realize that your future doesn't depend on what others think. It depends on what you do. So you save your energy for the things that move your life forward. You don't spend it on reactions. You invest it in results. There's a reason the quiet ones often move ahead faster. They're not distracted by every voice around them. They're not constantly explaining themselves. They're not trying to be understood by everyone. They know their direction and they protect it. They wait when others rush. They pause when others push. And that pause gives them power. It gives them room to make the right move. They don't need to prove anything through words. They prove everything through consistency. That's what silence gives you. More time to improve, while others waste time trying to be seen. In life, the loudest person isn't always the strongest. It's usually the one who's steady, disciplined, and focused. The one who's quiet when others are loud. The one who's working while others are talking. The one who's planning when others are reacting. That person holds the advantage not because they said the most, but because they used their silence to build clarity, patience, and real strength. You don't get that by chasing attention. You get it by staying centered and thinking long term. That's how real progress is made. So while others use their voices to feel important, use your silence to build importance. Use it to think deeper, act smarter, and protect your energy. Let them burn out in arguments that don't matter. Let them speak until they're tired. You keep watching. You keep learning. You keep moving in silence. Because in the end, it's not who made the most noise that wins. It's who made the best use of their focus. And that kind of focus only comes when you wait in silence, while the rest waste their energy talking. Number 5, stay quiet and let your growth do the work. When you're truly focused on growth, you don't need to say much. You don't have to explain what you're doing or convince others to believe in you. You just stay quiet and do the work. Growth speaks for itself. The results will come. The improvement will show. The change in your habits, the discipline in your schedule, the strength in your decisions. These things will prove what needs to be proven. You don't need to chase attention. You don't need to defend your path. When your growth becomes visible, silence becomes your strength, and the noise around you no longer matters. There's a kind of power that only belongs to the person who's consistent in silence. You wake up early. You take care of your responsibilities. You follow through when no one's watching. You don't look for recognition. You don't need applause. You keep your head down and focus on improvement. Over time, that work builds confidence. And confidence built in silence lasts longer than any praise from the crowd. That's how you build real self-worth, by earning it through effort, not by talking about it. Growth becomes your voice, and it speaks louder than any words. You don't need to tell people how serious you are. Show them. Not through conversation, but through action. Show it in how you manage your time. Show it in how you treat your responsibilities. Show it in how you stay disciplined when it's easier to quit. The people who truly succeed are not the ones constantly talking about what they're going to do. They're the ones who stay quiet and do it. They're the ones who don't explain their every step. They build, they grow, and eventually their success shows up without needing to be introduced. Let others post about their plans. Let them talk about their goals. You don't need to match that energy. Stay in your lane. Stay focused. Stay committed. Use your time to build something meaningful. Use your silence to sharpen your skills, strengthen your mindset, and prepare for what's next. When your results show, they'll say everything that needs to be said. People will notice the difference in how you carry yourself. They'll feel the strength in your presence. And none of it will come from bragging. It'll come from the quiet, focused growth you've been building every single day. Growth doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens when you're alone with your choices. It happens when you say no to distractions, when you push through the hard days without announcing it, when you keep going even though no one is watching. That kind of growth is solid. It's not built on opinions. It's built on decisions. And it doesn't need an audience. You don't owe the world an explanation. You don't need to make announcements. You just need to stay consistent. Stay quiet, keep developing yourself, let the results show up, and do all the talking later. The biggest changes in your life will often happen in silence. You'll outgrow old habits. You'll walk away from old patterns. You'll become someone new, not by saying you've changed, but by living differently. You'll take care of your health. You'll manage your time better. You'll choose better company. And you'll do it without a speech. That's when you know it's real. When your actions change without the need for attention. Growth becomes a lifestyle, not a performance. You carry it with you. It becomes part of you. It's silent but strong, and it keeps working even when no one's watching. You'll reach a point where silence feels better than talking. You won't want to explain your goals anymore. You won't want to debate your choices. You'll be too focused on building to care about proving. You'll understand that real success doesn't come from being loud. It comes from being consistent. You'll stop trying to convince people to understand you. You'll stop worrying about what they think. Because your growth will give you peace. Your work will give you confidence. And that will be more valuable than any opinion. You'll finally see the benefit of staying silent and letting the results speak. Sometimes the best response is no response. Not every situation needs your explanation. When you keep quiet and let your work talk, you protect your progress. You avoid unnecessary judgment. You save your energy. You focus on what actually matters. The world is full of people looking for validation. But when you no longer need that, you become stronger. You're not swayed by approval. You're not shaken by criticism. You stay steady because your confidence is built on progress, not praise. And that kind of strength is hard to break. There's peace in staying silent. You don't get caught in drama. You don't waste time on small talk. You keep your mind clear and your direction sharp. You learn to enjoy your own growth. You stop needing to announce every milestone. You keep growing quietly, step by step. And one day, the people who didn't understand you will see everything you built, not because you explained it, but because you showed them through your work, through your results, through your focus. That's the reward of silence. It gives you room to grow without interference and without limits. So stay quiet and let your growth do the work. Stay focused on what you're building. Stay committed to what matters. Don't let noise distract you. Don't let opinions slow you down. You don't need to convince anyone of your potential. You just need to keep improving day by day, moment by moment, quietly, privately, with discipline, with purpose. Growth will handle the rest. It'll show up in how you walk, how you think, how you lead your life. And when it does, you won't have to say a word. Your life will speak for you. Number 6, stop explaining everything and let people wonder instead. You don't owe people an explanation for every move you make. If you keep stopping to explain your actions, you slow down your progress. You interrupt your focus. You let others interfere with something they may not even understand. Not everyone is meant to understand your goals, your priorities, or your reasons. Some people ask questions just to judge. Some only want details so they can use them against you. So instead of explaining, move forward. Let people wonder. Let them make their guesses. What matters is not their opinion. What matters is that you stay focused and do what's right for you. When you always explain yourself, you give away too much. You give others the power to define your path. You make your journey about their approval. And once that happens, you're no longer free. You start hesitating. You question your choices. You lose momentum. But if you keep quiet, you stay in control. You protect your mind. You hold your direction. You stay committed to your own reasoning. People don't need a tour of your inner world. Your life is yours. Let your actions speak when it's time. Until then, let silence do the work. Letting people wonder is not about being mysterious. It's about protecting your process. It's about not letting outside voices shift your thinking. It's about staying grounded. There's peace in knowing that you don't have to justify every change you make. Some things are better left unsaid, not because they're secret, but because they're personal. You can outgrow something without announcing it. You can change direction without giving a speech. You can move forward without seeking permission. And when people don't know what you're doing, they can't distract you from it. If someone needs you to explain every step, they're not paying attention to who you are. The people who truly respect you won't need explanations. They'll trust your discipline. They'll understand that not everything needs to be said out loud. The ones who demand explanations are often the ones who aren't doing anything with their own lives, so they look to yours for answers. But your silence is not for them. It's for you. It's your way of staying focused. It's how you protect your energy, your progress, and your peace. When people don't know your next move, they can't plan around it. That's your advantage. You stay unpredictable. You're not boxed in by other people's expectations. You're not trapped by past promises or old statements. You stay free to adjust, to improve, to grow. And when you stop explaining everything, you learn to trust yourself more. You stop asking for validation. You stop needing confirmation. That freedom gives you clarity. You get more done. You make fewer mistakes. You move with intention instead of anxiety. That's what happens when you choose focus over explanation. There's a time for communication, but there's also a time for silence. And the people who know when to speak and when to stay quiet are the ones who win long term. Constant talking drains your time and your energy. It invites distractions. It invites conflict. When you stop explaining everything, you start doing more. You take real steps. You use your time on what matters. And instead of convincing people, you focus on becoming someone they can't ignore. Not because you told them, but because your life reflects the growth you've been building silently. People may get uncomfortable when you stop explaining yourself. That's not your responsibility. If someone feels uneasy not knowing your plans, that's their issue. You don't exist to make everyone comfortable. You exist to grow. You exist to build something real. So if silence helps you think clearer, choose it. If not explaining helps you focus better, hold that line. You're not being rude. You're being intentional. You're making choices that protect your progress. And in the end, it's not the person who talked the most that wins. It's the one who stayed locked in and followed through. Explaining too much can turn progress into performance. You start talking more about the journey than actually walking it. That's when things start falling apart. You chase approval instead of results. But when you stay quiet, you stay in your own lane. You stop comparing. You stop competing. You focus on becoming better than you were yesterday. You rise without an audience. You improve without applause. And the fewer people who know what you're doing, the fewer distractions you'll face. That's the real benefit of letting people wonder. They can't stop what they don't understand. Let your growth be private. Let your work be personal. Let your vision be sacred. You don't have to broadcast everything. In a world that overshares, silence is strength. While others are talking, you're planning. While they're asking questions, you're building answers. Not in words, but in results. Every step forward becomes more powerful when it's taken without needing to explain it first. And every change you make becomes more real when you don't waste time justifying it. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them talk. You stay focused. You stay grounded. You keep going. At the end of the day, nobody remembers what you explained. They remember what you did. They remember how you handled pressure. They remember the results you produced. So stop explaining everything. Focus on building something that speaks for itself. Make your life so solid that words aren't needed. Stay silent. Stay focused. Let your work be the proof. Let your decisions stand without needing support. And when people start to notice the difference, they'll wonder how it happened. They'll ask questions you don't need to answer. Because the truth was never in the talking. It was in the doing. Number 7, control your voice and stay focused on your plan. You don't need to raise your voice to prove a point. When you control your voice, you stay in command of your direction. You don't get pulled into arguments that don't serve your growth. You don't waste time explaining things to people who are only trying to distract you. You hold your words until they have real value. You choose silence over noise. You choose purpose over reaction. That's how you protect your plan. You keep it from being influenced by outside emotion. You stay focused. And your voice becomes stronger, not louder, but wiser, clearer, and more disciplined. There's a time to speak and a time to hold back. The key is knowing the difference. When you speak without thinking, you open the door to confusion, you leak energy, you lose rhythm. But when you control your voice, you stay calm, you keep your pace. You don't respond to pressure with panic, you respond with clarity. And that clarity protects your plan from being interrupted. Most people speak just to release tension. But when you speak with purpose, you lead yourself. You remind yourself that not every situation requires a reaction. Staying focused on your plan means guarding what enters your mind. It means filtering the opinions that come your way. People will always have something to say. They'll suggest, question, judge. And if you're not careful, you'll start shifting your plan to please their expectation. That's why controlling your voice matters. You don't need to defend every step. You don't have to justify your choices. Your plan is personal. You made it for a reason. And when you stay focused, you respect that reason. You keep walking your path even if no one claps for it. Discipline isn't just about action. It's about words too. It's about knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. When your voice is scattered, your focus is scattered. But when you control your expression, you keep your strength. You avoid being misunderstood. You stop giving energy to situations that don't deserve it. You keep your message clean. And that's important because the more serious your goals become, the more careful you must be with your words. Not everyone deserves to hear your thoughts. Not everyone has earned your explanation. Silence is your filter. Use it. There are moments when your voice wants to speak from frustration, when your mind wants to fight back. That's when you pause. That's when you remember that growth needs space. It doesn't happen in chaos. It doesn't survive in conflict. You don't build progress in the middle of emotional outbursts. You build it in calm, focused, thoughtful silence. That silence is not weakness, it's control. It's the power to choose your response, not be forced into it. And when you make that choice, you protect the path you're walking. You stay centered on your vision. The strongest people aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who stay the most focused. They know that talk is cheap when it's not backed by action. So they focus on action. They speak with intention. They don't waste words on arguments that won't change anything. They don't allow temporary emotions to damage long-term plans. They stay aligned with what matters. And because they do, they move further, faster, quieter, and with more confidence. Their voice doesn't lead the way. Their discipline does. And their silence becomes a shield that blocks out the noise. If your voice is always chasing validation, your plan will suffer. You'll start adjusting your strategy to fit other people's reactions. That's when you lose your rhythm. That's when you stop leading your own life. But if you control your voice, you stay grounded. You remind yourself that not every comment needs a comeback. Not every challenge needs a conversation. Some things are best left unanswered. Because silence isn't empty, it's space. And in that space, you strengthen your plan. You build without distraction. You grow without needing attention. That's how real focus is developed. Stay aware of how your words affect your momentum. One careless conversation can throw off an entire day. One emotional outburst can shift your focus from what matters to what doesn't. That's why you stay quiet. That's why you guard your voice. You don't allow it to become a weapon against your own goals. You keep it sharp. You use it when it helps. You hold it when it harms. And by doing that, you train yourself to think before you speak, to build before you react, to plan before you explain. That's real control. That's how growth is protected. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room. You don't need to speak over others to be taken seriously. Your value isn't in your volume. It's in your presence. It's in your direction. It's in how you carry your plan, protect it, and follow through with it. You control your voice because you care more about results than responses. You're not here to entertain. You're here to evolve. And every time you stay focused on your plan instead of trying to impress the world, you take another step toward the life you actually want. So control your voice and stay focused on your plan. Keep it simple. Keep it clean. Keep it strong. Let others waste time trying to prove themselves. You stay committed to improving yourself. Let them talk while you build. Let them debate while you move. Speak only when it helps you grow. Be silent when the moment calls for strength. Your words are tools. Don't use them carelessly. Use them with discipline. Use them with purpose. And when you do, you'll find that the less you say, the more powerful your actions become, and the closer you move toward everything you set out to do. Number 8, use silence to separate what's noise from what matters. Silence gives you the chance to clear out what doesn't serve you. When there's too much noise around you, opinions, distractions, pressure, you start to lose track of what really matters. That's when silence becomes necessary. It's not just the absence of sound, it's a tool. It's the space where your mind can breathe and sort things out. In that stillness, you see what needs your attention and what doesn't. You notice what's urgent versus what's important. Noise demands reaction, silence demands reflection. And reflection brings clarity. That's how you begin to separate what pushes you forward from what holds you back. Too many people spend their days caught in unnecessary conversations, pointless debates, and endless scrolling. They don't even realize how much energy is being drained by things that have no real value. The noise of the world doesn't care about your goals. It's there to distract, to entertain, to delay, but silence reminds you of your priorities. It forces you to slow down and evaluate. You start asking, is this helping me grow? Most of the time, the answer is no. And once you see that clearly, silence becomes something you protect. In the quiet moments, you get to face the truth you've been avoiding. You see how much time you've spent responding to things that didn't deserve a response. You realize how often you've been pulled away from your own direction because of someone else's urgency. But in silence, you step back. You create space between yourself and the noise. And that space allows you to take control again. You stop reacting and you start choosing. Choosing what to give your energy to, choosing who to listen to. Choosing how to move forward without letting the outside world distract you. When you live in constant noise, you never get the chance to hear your own thoughts clearly. You're always reacting, always answering, always chasing the next thing. But when you stay silent, even for a few minutes, the dust settles, the pressure fades, your thoughts slow down. You begin to recognize what's real and what's just loud. Not everything that's loud is important. Some things are designed to pull your attention just for the sake of it. But in silence, you develop the ability to ignore what doesn't align with your purpose. That's a skill that few ever master. Focus is impossible without clarity, and clarity is impossible without silence. You can't stay sharp when your mind is cluttered. You can't make strong decisions when you're overstimulated. That's why staying silent is part of staying focused. You're not just avoiding noise, you're rejecting it. You're choosing depth over distraction. You're creating space to think, to plan, to adjust. That's where progress lives. Not in constant motion, but in quiet direction. When you block out the noise, what matters starts to stand out. You don't have to force it, you just have to listen carefully to the silence. The world rewards the loud, but the wise don't chase noise. They seek alignment. They know that what matters most isn't always flashy or urgent. Sometimes the most powerful moves happen in silence. You don't always need to speak to be seen. You don't always need to explain to be understood. You just need to know what matters to you and give that your full attention. That clarity doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from solitude, from stepping away long enough to sort through the mess and focus on what's truly worth your time and energy. You'll often find that the things people make noise about are temporary. Trends fade, opinions change, drama passes. But the things that matter, your health, your purpose, your values, those things stay. Silence gives you the power to remember what's lasting. It reminds you of what really counts. While others waste time reacting to everything that happens, you're filtering. You're removing the noise before it buries your direction. You're staying steady while the world spins in circles. That discipline to stay grounded while everyone else is drifting is what sets you apart. And it starts with being silent enough to notice. You can't stop the noise from coming, but you can decide how much of it you let in. You can decide what gets your attention and what doesn't. Most people never learn that. They believe they have to respond to everything. They feel the pressure to keep up, to speak out, to stay involved. But when you stay silent, you realize how little of that actually matters. You stop needing to be everywhere, to say something about everything. You find your lane. You stay in it. And because you're not constantly pulled in every direction, you make real progress. Silence gives you the power to reset. Every day brings new noise, new distractions, new emotional pulls. Without moments of silence, you'll start reacting on autopilot. But with silence, you regain control. You see what's urgent and what's just loud. You pause before you move. You think before you speak. You act with intention, not pressure. That's how you move with strength. That's how you stay focused when everyone else is scattered. You're not trying to keep up with the noise. You're trying to grow beyond it. And every silent moment you take brings you closer to that. Use silence to filter your world. Use it to step back, to separate, to see clearly. Not everything deserves your voice. Not everything earns your attention. Some things are just noise, and if you're not careful, they'll steal your time, your energy, and your focus. But when you stay silent, you see through it. You protect what matters. You keep your focus sharp. And in that stillness, you begin to build something stronger than words. Clarity, direction, peace. That's the power of silence. That's how you take control in a world full of distractions. That's how you stay focused. Number 9, say nothing and protect the power you've built. There comes a point in your growth where speaking too soon can undo what you've quietly built. You've worked hard, you've stayed disciplined, you've made sacrifices, you've overcome distractions and kept moving forward. But if you start talking too much, explaining too much, sharing too much, you expose what should be protected. Not everyone needs to know your next move. Not everyone deserves access to your plans. When you say nothing, you keep your momentum safe. You're not giving people an entry point to your mindset. You're guarding your progress. And that silence keeps your power where it belongs, with you. You didn't come this far just to be derailed by unnecessary conversations. You didn't build your habits, your focus, your mindset, just to hand them over to people who don't understand your direction. Talking too early opens the door to noise. It invites opinions that don't align with your values. It gives space for doubt to enter. But silence is strength. It's a wall between your progress and the world's chaos. It's your way of saying, this is mine. I've earned this. I don't need to prove it to anyone. You hold the power by holding your voice. When you stay silent, you avoid the trap of validation. You're not asking anyone to approve your effort. You're not waiting for encouragement to keep going. You move because you know it matters. You stay focused because the results mean more than recognition. And that kind of discipline needs to be protected. The more people you invite into your process, the more vulnerable it becomes. Keep it tight, keep it secure. The world doesn't need an update, it needs proof. And that proof will come through consistent results, not constant talking. Let your silence protect everything you've worked for. Sometimes silence is the only way to keep your foundation steady. When you've built yourself up after failure, when you've learned through struggle, when you've developed real discipline, it's not something to throw around lightly. Words can cheapen what effort has created. People may not value what you value. They may challenge it. They may mock it. They may try to pull you into doubt. So don't give them that chance. Say nothing. Keep building. Keep moving. Stay quiet until your results are undeniable. By then, you won't need to say a word. Your progress will speak for itself. It's easy to want to share your progress, to want to let people know what you're working on, but that desire often leads to distraction. The moment you speak, the moment you share, you invite interpretation. You open yourself to opinions, pressure, and expectation. That can shake your focus, it can change your rhythm. But when you remain silent, you keep your world intact. You protect your internal momentum. You continue on your path without interruption. That quiet discipline is rare, and the ones who master it are the ones who last. Not because they shouted, but because they stayed steady. Your power was built in silence, in the early mornings, in the quiet sacrifices, in the focused routines. That wasn't for the world to see. It was for you. So why let noise in now? Why expose what's still forming? Growth needs protection. It needs space. It needs time. You don't talk about seeds while they're still underground. You wait until they break through the surface. You wait until they're strong enough to handle the weather. In the same way, your progress doesn't need to be seen right away. Keep it hidden. Keep it safe. That's how you keep your edge. You also protect your energy when you say nothing. Not every conversation deserves your time. Not every comment needs a reply. Not every situation calls for a statement. Learn to walk away quietly. Learn to smile and move on. Learn to outgrow the need to explain yourself. Your energy is sacred. It fuels your goals, your habits, your routines. When you speak less, you preserve that energy. You don't waste it on debates or validation or endless justification. You keep it directed at your goals. And that focus gives you the strength to do what most people can't. Stay consistent. You don't need to react to every distraction. You don't need to announce every decision. You just need to stay aligned with what matters to you. Talking too much scatters your strength. It turns your power into performance. But silence keeps it real. Silence means you're not performing. You're preparing. You're not proving. You're progressing. And that mindset builds something solid, something that lasts. So while others talk about what they plan to do, you do it. While they chase attention, you chase progress. And your silence becomes the shield that guards everything you've worked hard to create. Eventually, people will notice. They'll see the results. They'll feel the difference. They'll recognize the discipline, the clarity, the consistency, and they'll wonder how it happened. That's the moment where silence becomes your strength. Because you didn't ask for recognition. You didn't fight for attention. You stayed on track. You stayed focused. You let your actions deliver the message. That's how power works. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It stands strong and moves forward with confidence. Saying nothing isn't about hiding. It's about choosing your timing. And when the time is right, the results will say everything you didn't. So keep your voice low and your standards high. Protect what you've built by refusing to explain it to everyone. Not everything needs to be shared. Not every detail deserves to be spoken. Some things grow best in silence. Your power is one of them. You've earned your progress. You've developed your habits. You've come a long way. Don't risk it for a quick conversation. Stay disciplined. Stay locked in. Speak when it matters, but until then, say nothing. Hold your ground, guard your focus, and let the strength you've built grow stronger in silence. Number 10, be silent long enough to learn what wins today. If you want to win the day, start by listening, not just to people, but to everything around you. The patterns, the timing, the shifts in opportunity. Those who rush to speak miss what's unfolding. They react too fast, they move too soon, and they guess before they understand. But when you stay silent long enough, you begin to see things clearly. You notice what's working and what's wasting time. You catch what others overlook. Success isn't just about effort. It's about awareness. And awareness only comes when your mind is still, your voice is quiet, and your focus is sharp. Being silent doesn't mean doing nothing. It means learning everything, watching how the day moves, studying how others respond, seeing what produces results versus what only creates noise. You can't learn this by talking. You can't learn this by rushing. You need to slow down and observe. Most people want quick answers, but those who win are patient enough to study the moment. They figure out what's really needed. They adjust based on reality, not pressure. And because they take the time to learn, they move with more precision and less regret. Every day brings a new lesson, but if you're always speaking, you miss it. You miss the chance to grow, to shift, to adapt. The market changes, people change, circumstances shift. If you're still doing what worked yesterday without understanding today, you're falling behind. Silence gives you the edge. It gives you the ability to sense what direction is right before you commit. That makes you smarter. That makes you faster. Not because you loud, but because you waited, listened, and learned before acting. That's how real winners operate. Quiet first, then decisive action. When you walk into a room, silence allows you to read it. When you enter a new challenge, silence helps you assess it. Talking too soon forces you into positions you're not ready for. It makes you overpromise, overcommit, and underdeliver. But if you stay quiet, you give yourself options, you give yourself time to understand, you notice the energy, the tone, the rhythm, and you adjust based on truth, not emotion. That's the power of listening before leading. You don't guess. You wait until you know, and then you move calm, direct, and in control. Winners don't chase noise, they filter it. They don't fall for hype, they study what works. While others are distracted by what's trending, they're focused on what's lasting. That kind of focus takes restraint. It takes the discipline to hold back your opinion, to withhold your reaction, to give silence the space to reveal what matters. When you do that, you waste less time, you avoid unnecessary setbacks, you make choices based on understanding, not urgency. You stay ahead by staying still just long enough to know exactly where to go and how to get there. There's always something to learn, even in the smallest moments. But most people are too busy trying to be seen or heard to notice it. They talk over lessons. They move before they're ready. They want to impress instead of improve, but improvement requires silence. Not forever, just long enough to listen. Just long enough to observe without reacting. To pay attention without adding your opinion. That pause gives you insight. That insight becomes your strategy. And that strategy becomes the reason you're consistent when others are scattered. Because you didn't guess. You understood. The smartest move is not always the fastest one, the one that no one sees because you haven't said anything yet. The one you prepare for while the world watches something else. That's why silence is your strength. It lets you build without interference. It helps you train your mind to focus. And in that focus, you see exactly what today needs, not what worked last week, not what's trending now, but what actually works in this moment. That awareness puts you miles ahead, not because you worked harder, but because you paid attention. You don't need to speak about every problem. You don't need to answer every challenge out loud. Some problems require thought, not talk. Some opportunities require timing, not noise. The people who win understand this. They listen first, they learn, they analyze, then they move. One step, one decision, one focused effort at a time. They don't react emotionally. They don't fight every battle. They stay centered. And when they strike, it's accurate. It's effective. Because they used silence to prepare. They used silence to plan. And when the time came, they knew exactly what to do. Each day has its own rhythm. It has its own pace, its own flow. But you won't see it if you're too loud, too rushed, too distracted. You have to be still enough to notice the timing, to spot when to act and when to hold back. That's how you make the most of today. Not by doing more, but by understanding more. And understanding starts with silence. A few quiet minutes can teach you more than hours of noise. So take that time, claim it, protect it, use it to learn what today actually requires. Be silent long enough to learn what wins today. Be quiet long enough to know when to speak and when to move. The world is loud, but you don't have to be. You can rise above the noise without becoming part of it. You can lead with clarity because you've taken the time to listen. That's how you win. Not by shouting your plans, but by sharpening them in silence. Not by reacting to pressure, but by choosing your response with intention. That's the true power of staying silent and focused. It makes you sharper, wiser, and ready for anything.